What's going on, Patrick? What is going on with this Lando Norris story? I don't even understand what's going on, and I should have bloody seen it. I saw Mark Hughes of the race responding to an F1 fan on Twitter about Alonso and Lewis not being offered. And again, remember, so here's where this kicks off, because there was a noddy F1 fan trying to accuse Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton of being scared of racing Max Verstappen. That's why those two aren't in the Red Bull, noddy F1 fan said. To which Mark Hughes, who is a half decent journo, breaks some half decent stories sometimes, doesn't he? Mark Hughes responded, well, you know what? To be fair to you, mate, you wouldn't know this, but I'm going to tell you, Alonso nor Lewis Hamilton had access to that Red Bull. It was never in their hands, and that's not for the want of trying, said Mark Hughes. Well, how about Lando? Said noddy F1 fan. To which Mark Hughes reiterated, only the only people who were offered a seat at Red Bull was some chap called Lando Norris, or words to that effect. I paraphrase ever so slightly, and that is bonkers, ladies and gents. Go and check the tweets out there. The insinuation was that Lando Norris was offered a seat at Red Bull, and my mind is blown. I read half of that Twitter exchange, but not the second half. That Lando Norris was offered a seat at Red Bull is an absolute mind fudge. That is bonkers. Why then would Lando Norris extend in January of 2024 his contract with McLaren? Why would he do that? So if you listen to Lando Norris, and you've got to take the dude at his word, right? I'm not going to call Lando Norris a liar. I think Lando Norris is a god tier racing driver, maybe lacks in a little bit of confidence, as is alluded to, which we will get to in short order. But why would he extend at McLaren and not go and race Max Verstappen? Well, in an interview with Sky Sports F1, Craig Slater asked him that very question, wary of one Red Bull team principal, Christian Horner, and what he might say over the ensuing weeks. Remember, January 2024 is when all of a sudden news broke of McLaren extending Lando Norris on a multi-year deal. So why did you do that then? Why now, Lando? That was the question pitched at the Brit. Lando responded, well, listen, I did it for the team. It's not good for the team ethos going forward. If there is all this speculation about my job and my future at the Papaya team, that's why I did it, responded Lando. But how about what Christian's going to say? Because what Christian is going to say, responded Craig Slater, is that the likes of Leclerc and Norris are scared to fight with one Max Verstappen in equal machinery. That's what Christian Horner will say, and that's what I'll be thinking over the ensuing weeks. To which one Lando Norris responded, well, you know what? In all honesty, Max Verstappen of a few years ago, if he were to come into the team today, he might struggle, because it's really difficult to jump into a brand new team straight away and challenge straight away. I don't think then. Max, of course, is one of the greatest driver, probably the greatest driver on the grid currently. To get in the car with him and try and fight with him and try and build a team that's been built around him, around you then, with his length of service front and centre of the mind, Lando said that I don't think that's very smart. Now, I'll love to fight with Max over the next couple of seasons in my car, in the Papaya car, but to go and fight with him at his team, I don't think is very smart. And that's what Lando said. That's the reason why Lando didn't take the offer of Red Bull second seat. And I think that's chaos. Honestly, as a sports fan, I'm like, go and fight with Max Verstappen. Listen, if there's one thing that you're not guaranteed as an F1 driver, that's a championship winning car. Most 80% of F1 drivers go through their career and don't even get a sniff of a car capable of winning themselves a championship. That Lando had that in his hands and turned it down. Even if he's got that reason, even if that was his rationale, disappoints me. I'm going to be honest. I would have loved for Lando Norris to go over there and fight with Max Verstappen. What if Ayrton Senna had said that in 89 or 88 even? What if Senna had said, you know what, I don't want to go and fight with Le Professeur. I don't want to go and fight with Alain Prost. I don't want to go and fight with him. I'm going to stay over here. What if he'd said that? What if Lewis had said that? You're too kind, NC Paddock. What if Lewis had said that? Oh, I don't want to go and fight with Alonso. What if Alonso had said that even in 2007? I don't want to go and fight with Lewis. That's not in the spirit of F1. You must back yourself, surely. And if Lando is the chap who I think he is, who I think he can be, the driver, the fighter, if he is as brave and courageous a man and a driver, a peddler as I think he is, then he would have took that deal. He would have gone into Max Verstappen's lair and fought him in earnest. What's wrong with that? Are these drivers, non-rhetorical question then, NC Paddock, are these drivers going soft? I think that's what you're alluding to, Paddock, and you're far too kind, Matthew. Leave McLaren, he's had multiple opportunities, seems content extending his safety blanket. He knows if he leaves, it's an uphill fight. But this is tragedy, NC Paddock. I hoped that Lando Norris was that guy. I still think he might be the guy, but that he turned down that contract, I don't know, at least doubts in my mind. I've seen Lando come up through the feeder formula, and I think he's got to a weapons grade peddler if ever I've seen one. But then this gives me doubts. He's no Ayrton Senna, is he? Because Senna would have jumped at the chance to jump into that RB20, that Adrian Newey car, the most dominant car that we've seen and the most dominant team that we've seen in F1 history, and fight Max Verstappen mano a mano. He would have done it. He would have bitten off your hand. And that's why, again, it gives me pause for thought whether Lando Norris is indeed the man that I think he is, the driver that I think he is. And again, I was thinking back in the memory banks, you need to go and do a cheeky fact check because you're not sure whether you're remembering things correctly. I remember Lando Norris jumping out of Max Verstappen's way at the start, on occasion when he's qualified on the front row or even in pole. I'm thinking, what resistance has he offered? Because in my mind, I feel like Lando's always very friendly with Max Verstappen, especially off the start. Not quite come through, sir, but nearly. Very, very leans into the sports etiquette always with Max Verstappen, whereas when it's Oscar or Lewis trying to come through, that's the time when Lando gets his elbows out. And we know that the two of them are friends, and maybe Lando has baked that into his decision making. But I decided I was going to go back and refresh my memory and look at a couple of their interactions, most notable of which 2023 in the Brazil Sprint Grand Prix. Go back and have a look. And you guys know, listen, if you qualify and pole and the run down to turn one is short, normally, if you're Max Verstappen as an example, and you're on the outside, as is pole position at Interlagos, then surely when you park your car before lights out, you do one of these, right? You angle over just to make sure you're covering off the guy in second place. Lando did one of these. It was so easy for Max Verstappen to overtake Lando Norris at the sprint race into turn one. It begs the question, are they too friendly off track? Is Lando Norris intimidated by Max Verstappen, as many of them on the grid currently are? Why would you not do one of these to cover off Max Verstappen into turn one? And try to play devil's advocate, and I can't even think of a reason. It makes no sense to me. Which begs the question then, is Lando Norris scared of Max Verstappen? Well, if you go back and take a look at 2023, the British Grand Prix, Lando pulls a god tier overtaking manoeuvre off the start on Max Verstappen. So that evidence is in stark contrast, diametrically opposed to my thesis, isn't it? So maybe Lando isn't scared. But being scared is very different from being able to front up against Max Verstappen. They're very different entities, very different propositions, right? And I don't think Lando is prepared to do it. Now, some of you guys in the chat might argue that that's the smart play, Jomo. Maybe that is the smart play. Who would go into Max Verstappen's lair and fight with him? Well, Alonso wanted to, apparently. Although Red Bull apparently, so I'm hearing on the rumour mill, Red Bull, he was only in talks on the contingency and the eventuality that Max Verstappen was going to go somewhere else to Mercedes, potentially. That's what the rumour mill is telling me. Take from that what you will. Lewis Hamilton, I think Anthony Hamilton had conversations, only precursory ones, nothing serious, with Christian Horner about the chances of Lewis going over to drive in the same car with Max. Lewis would have done it. But Lando Norris was offered the bloody contract and didn't. Now go on then, let's talk about this very quickly. Was that the smart decision to make? Because anyone can come on here and say, yeah, well, it's the hardest thing. It's rarefied air to go and get yourself a set of wheels that are capable of winning yourself a driver's championship. I can say that from a distance, right? It's not my career that we're talking about. This is Lando's career. So asking a non-rhetorical question here then, chat. Did Lando do the right thing? Is that second seat at Red Bull where drivers go to fail? Because Alex Albon will tell you as much, right? I don't think Alex Albon's looking to go in that seat again anytime soon. He's talked extensively about his mental health woes that he went through, the pressure that he couldn't build the team around him necessarily, that he was driving a car, the handling dynamic of which lent into his teammate Max Verstappen. The steering, it was so on the nose, it was too sensitive for him. Unnerving, if I recall rightly, was the word that Alex Albon used. It's chaos then. Maybe Lando did do the right thing for his career, NC Paddock. Maybe that was the play. Maybe he's stacking the deck in his favour. Maybe NC Paddock, you're far too kind. So if he was that guy, he's had multiple chances to show it and choose the safe bet instead of gambling to prove he's God tier. Like you say, in my opinion, he's more Jensen Button than Ayrton Senna or Lewis Hamilton. Sorry. Oh my God, Matthew. NC Paddock F1, go and check out that channel. I can't disagree with you, NC Paddock. The proof is in the pudding, but yet and still, I will pitch this to you, chat, Matthew. Maybe, just maybe, if we're playing devil's advocate for a second, maybe for him, for Lando Norris, Lando's made the right decision. Because ultimately in F1, all you can do is make sensible choices, right? You want to try and stack the odds in your favour at each and every single turn. When you hear me go off and rant about Mercedes, it's because this is what they're not doing. They're not making the right decisions for them, and they haven't been doing it for the past 36 months. So maybe in that sense, in that light, maybe Lando's done the right thing for him. Now, we've heard him talk about his mental health struggles, right? How he's overly critical. You always hear him, not quite Charles Leclerc levels, but very, very overcritical, nevertheless, of himself. You are oftentimes, when you hear him giving interviews, you hear him getting down into the minutiae, what he's done wrong, what he should have done in X, Y, and Z session. He's always open and honest, almost to a fault. So with that front and centre of the mind, if you're going to be overly critical, if you're ever so slightly fragile as far as your sensitivity, if your shoulders aren't broad, then is it a smart play for you to go and front up Max Verstappen in that team that's already been fashioned in Max Verstappen's image? Is that the play? Open and honest question, non-rhetorical, because I don't think it is. I can be old and antiquated in my thesis and think that Lando Norris should man up and go and jump in that car, that the risk is worth the reward, even is worth the risk. Surely do a cheeky cost benefit analysis and go and find yourself in the most dominant car that we've ever seen in F1. Yeah, you can say that, but you know, in conclusion, I think Lando's done the right thing for him. He knows himself. Max Verstappen takes no prisoners, not least Checo Perez on the other side of the garage in the same car. He has Helmut Marko in his pocket, doesn't he? He just does. You guys have seen the stories of Carlos Sainz Jr. 2015, 2016, Jomo, right? You guys have seen the stories that Helmut Marko had a word with the Toro Rosso garage and charged them to act in a way that was autonomous, notwithstanding team principal Franz Tost wanted both sides of the garage to operate as one, uniformly. Both Sainz's and Max Verstappen's. Marko overrode that completely, to the point where some of those guys got sacked and Marko had to reappoint them, find them jobs. Even that's what we're dealing with. Now, people will say that Adrian Newey hasn't designed the car with Max Verstappen front and centre of mind, but Max Verstappen has the ability, so malleable is he in terms of being a jockey, that he can drive any car right. He's super adaptable. Short corners, geometric racing line, on the nose, front limited, rear limit. Like, he doesn't care at this stage. 26-year-old Max Verstappen can drive anything, and that's why Adrian Newey loves him. Would it be smart then for Lando Norris to, with all of that context, with all of that table setting front and centre of the mind, would it be smart then for any driver, let alone Lando Norris, being as sensitive as he is, to go into that Max Verstappen layer? NC Paddock says, don't want to take at the chat, so I'll finish with this. Keep your eyes on Oscar. He's coming for you, Lando. Honestly, NC Paddock, I'm not sure that he is. I think people are disrespecting Lando Norris. I'll be honest with you. I think that Lando absolutely has the beating of Oscar Piastri. Oscar Piastri is going to go some. And I say all that. This is the reason why I say all this, Matthew, chat. Because I think Lando is God tier. The fact that he's made a decision, the decision that's best for him, I think we should rate him for it, not chastise him for it. I am an old school sports fan, and I love seeing people go head to head, seeking out even the biggest challenger in their chosen field and taking them on head to head. But sometimes in 2024, chat, you want to make a sensible decision, right? You want to make the best decision for you. You want to stack the odds in your favour. In a sport in F1, a story told in tenths, where the margins are always wafer thin. They always have been and always will be. Surely then, what you want to do is optimise for your lot. I think Lando Norris has been open and honest in assessing his strengths and weaknesses. And he knows that as at April 2024, the best chance he has of winning a championship rests with the papaya team, McLaren, and not Red Bull. The prosecution rests. No further questions, Your Honour.